Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Blame It on the Stars, where we give you an inside look to what's going on in the universe so you can blame your problems on the stars. It is Jade here.
And it's Kara.
And this week, we'll be diving into Taurus season, giving you the entire overview of everything that happens during Taurus season so you kind of know what you're getting into up front in advance. But in case you missed it, last week, we talked all about the solar eclipse in Aries, which actually happens the same day that Taurus season begins. And we also did a little bit of a deep dive on Mercury retrograde, which happens during Taurus season. Those are two things you want to know about before diving into this episode, so definitely give it a listen if you haven't already.
And just to give you a heads up, next week we will tell you everything you need to know about the lunar eclipse in Scorpio and Venus in Cancer. Also, as you're listening to today's episode, if any astrology questions come up, please feel free to send them to us on Spotify and we will answer them in next week's episode.
And just to give you a taste of what we'll be talking about, Taurus season, the sun in Taurus, Mercury retrograde, Pluto retrograde, the lunar eclipse, Venus in Cancer, Jupiter in Taurus, new moon in Taurus. So if you're curious to know more about those, then after a short ad break, we're going to dive right into it. So Taurus season begins when the sun enters Taurus this year. It'll be on April 20th at 4:14 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Per usual, the date and time are from the website astroseek.com. How this affects you. Taurus season this year has a lot of cozy energy. Normally during Taurus season, it's a period of time where things start to slow down a bit and you can really take your time and not rush and just enjoy life as it comes at you.
If you listen to the Aries season episode, then you already know that we set a lot of new goals during Aries season because that is the start of the astrological new year. As we move into Taurus season, we're going to focus a lot on being practical and hardworking as we are working towards our goals, the goals that we set. Taurus is a fixed sign, so there is that sense of consistency, determination, and loyalty that comes with it. So it is a good time to put those things into action and to be focused on things that are a little bit more tangible during Taurus season.
So in addition to all of the things that come up during Taurus season, there are going to be some key dates you'll want to pay attention to as the sun makes aspects. The first one being on the day Taurus season begins, April 20th, the sun will be square Pluto. Now, this can be a little bit of a challenging day. You might find that you're recognizing some fears that still need to be conquered, but just remember that this will pass. It's very fleeting energy.
And then on April 24th, the sun will be conjunct the North Node. On this day, you're going to reconnect with your sense of purpose. There might be some growth that's going on in your personal life, or you could also achieve something or work towards something that brings a sense of fulfillment. So you might find that on this day, this event or this experience starts, or that you reach the end of the cycle. It also can inspire you to connect with your spiritual side as well.
The next day, on April 25th, the sun will be sextile Saturn. Now, this is a great day for taking yourself seriously and any long-term goals that you have, putting them into motion. And also, too, you might find that you're really able to set the boundaries that you need in order to make those things happen for yourself.
And then on May 1st, the sun will be conjunct Mercury retrograde. This happens at exactly 7:27 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Typically, when the sun is conjunct Mercury, this is a really good day for thinking and communication. Keep in mind, though, that Mercury is retrograde at this time, so you might have some realizations, and this also marks a turning point in terms of the retrograde cycle because this is about halfway through. So it's really good for introspection because of the retrograde energy. You still might be experiencing some challenges, but you might find some clarity from within on that day.
And then on May 9th, the sun will be conjunct Uranus. This is a really good day for inviting in some changes into your life. If there's something that you've been wanting to change, whether it be even your hair, the way you do your makeup, or just general life changes, you might find that May 9th is kind of the day where you are thinking about doing it. So the next thing that happens during Taurus season, if you listen to last week's episode, then you know this already. But Mercury will station retrograde in Taurus. This happens on April 21st at 4:35 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, what you need to know is expect the classic miscommunication issues, the losing things, etc. It's Mercury retrograde. You know the drill.
If you do want to know more about this Mercury retrograde, then go listen to last week's episode because we went into all of the details, including the key dates that you will want to pay attention to.
Yeah, we really wanted it to have its own moment, which is why I talked about it last week. But speaking of retrogrades, the next one that happens during Taurus season is Pluto stationing retrograde in Aquarius. This happens on May 1st at 1:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, how this affects you is you probably won't really notice this at all, to be honest, because Pluto is an outer planet and it's very far away and it impacts society more than an individual. Basically, our first little taste of Pluto in Aquarius is on its way to an end. Pluto will go back into Aquarius next year, then it'll retrograde out, and then by the end of next year, it'll go back into Aquarius. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, so like Jade just said, this is a very short experience that we're having this year with Pluto in Aquarius. It's only there for about 3 months in 2023. However, it's still worth talking about and noticing in your own chart and maybe some of the themes that do come up, even if it's in subtle ways, because we will experience this transit more fully in the future. So paying attention to what's happening now will help you get a better idea of how this will affect you when this happens again in 2024. Some things that you might notice, whether it's in your personal life or just on a societal level, because Pluto is in the sign of Aquarius, and Aquarius deals with our communities, social life, also things in tech. Those are some areas that you might see some changes, a transformation occurring.
So everything else that we're about to mention, just to let you know, will have their own episodes, so you can expect us to go more in depth in the following transits in the upcoming weeks. But just so you know what's coming now, we will discuss them now. The next thing that happens during Taurus season is the lunar eclipse in Scorpio. This happens on May 5th at 1:33 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So eclipses are basically supercharged new and full moons. This will be a supercharged full moon, basically, where you can expect there to be this strong desire to do some releasing surrounding Scorpio themes, such as privacy, potentially even control. There could be a lot of strong emotions during this eclipse.
If you listened to last week's episode, then you already know this, but for those of you who are just joining now, we are in the transition between the Taurus and Scorpio eclipses and Libra and Aries eclipses, so that's why we talked about the solar eclipse in Aries in last week's episode, and now we're talking about a lunar eclipse in Scorpio because they're going to change over between the two. It's also worth mentioning that there will be some aspects to this eclipse that we will go into more detail about next week, which include some aspects to Mercury retrograde and Uranus. So you're definitely going to want to listen because there's a lot going on here.
Now, the next thing that'll happen during Taurus season is Venus entering Cancer. This will happen on May 7th at 10:25 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, what you need to know is that this could bring some focus towards themes of home and family. If you're finding that there's a lot of family gatherings coming up, or you're just inspired to redecorate your home, those are some of the things you can be on the lookout for.
So Venus in Cancer is one of the more refreshing and positive transits that is happening during Taurus season. There are all positive aspects for the whole transit of Venus in Cancer, which we will go into more detail in the future, but that's just something to know and something to look forward to this Taurus season.
Another thing that you'll be happy to know about is, even though we mentioned that Mercury does retrograde in Taurus, Mercury retrograde will end during Taurus season. So Mercury will station direct in Taurus on May 14th at 11:17 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So moving forward after that, the miscommunication problems should come to an end. Communication will be back on track, and it will be back in that regular Mercury and Taurus, logical, persistent, loyal energy.
One more thing to know before we move on to the next transit is that once Mercury stations direct in Taurus on May 14th, there will be a post-shadow phase that doesn't end until Gemini season. We have those exact dates and more details in last week's episode if you are interested, but just something to know, because after Mercury stations direct, there might be some time where we are still resolving and figuring out the final things and themes that were going on during the Mercury retrograde.
Now, the next thing that happens during Taurus season is Jupiter entering Taurus. This happens on May 16th at 1:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, how this affects you is you'll be finding that there is a strong desire to enjoy the finer things in life. This includes just like treating yourself, self-care energy. It should feel like a very positive time in your life to like just enjoy nice things.
So if you've been following astrology or learning about astrology for a little while, then you know that Jupiter was going back and forth between Aries and Pisces for a while with some retrogrades. However, this transit with Jupiter entering Taurus is going to be a little bit different because it will enter Taurus, like Jade said, on May 16th and stay there in Taurus. It will retrograde, but it will stay in Taurus the whole time and then pass through into Gemini. So that's just something to know. We'll get to experience Jupiter and Taurus energy all at once. We also will be experiencing a conjunction to the North Node and a square to Pluto. But again, all of that is to come in more detail in a future episode.
And then the last thing that'll happen during Taurus season is the new moon in Taurus. This happens on May 19th at 11:53 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, this will be a pretty good new moon for setting intentions around all the Taurus themes. So that could include comforts, finances, your goals, being in nature, whatever goals you have during this new moon.
This new moon is the first one in a while that's happening in Taurus that isn't an eclipse, so that is exciting. However, there are some challenging aspects like a square to Saturn and a conjunction to Uranus, which is not necessarily new energy because we've been having a lot of interactions with those planets this year, but it is worthwhile to note because even though we are excited that this isn't an eclipse, there still will be some challenging aspects going on.
That's pretty much it for Taurus season. If you have any questions about anything we just talked about or any astrology questions in general, then feel free to drop them to us on Spotify and we'll answer them in the upcoming episodes. But if you do have a question that is more suited for a reading, maybe it's a more personal question, then this is your reminder that we do offer readings. Readings are hosted on an app called Intro, which allows for FaceTime style calls. We have readings for as short as 15 minutes to as long as 1 hour. You decide what you want to talk about and who you want the reading with. When you go to fill out the reading information, there's a slot for you to ask questions and we'll be able to answer them on the call face to face.
And if you've never booked a reading with us before, then you can use the code STARS, all caps, STARS, for $20 off your first reading.
And just to remind you, next week we'll be talking all about the lunar eclipse in Scorpio and Venus entering Cancer. So you'll definitely want to show up on Monday to learn more about that. If you want to stay in the loop with us and what's to come, then make sure you're following us on social media. We are on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at BLME The Stars. That is all for now, and we'll see you all next Monday. Bye.